Well, hello, this is Yousepha Fawcett. This is JFI Radio, and welcome to World Radio Day 2026. It's the 13th of February, and I'm live, and you'll know that because I make a few bloopers along the way. And you know what? It's absolutely fine. Now, some of you may have been following me since this morning because I started doing this from the UK at 5 a.m. this morning. And I've done a live at 5 a.m., one at 9 a.m., and now in the UK it's 1 p.m. And this is for my lovely friends and colleagues over in the Middle East, Africa, and India. Because you know what? You are going to be just starting it's your afternoon, maybe it's really very much the end of the day, and you're getting ready to slow it down just a little bit. So maybe it's an absolutely perfect time for you to be listening to me. So whether you are in the UAE, the Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Kenya, Ethiopia, Egypt, India, hello to every single one of you, and thank you for joining me as we celebrate World Radio Day. My name's Yousepha. You may not have met me before, but I have been running JFI Radio now, well, since 2015. I was one of the very first podcasters, and I'm delighted to say that I've been really fortunate. I have had an opportunity to, as a consultant, work all around the world. For the last 24 years, I've worked in 42 countries, on 5 continents, 19 industries, and all 5 economic sectors. And during that time, I've spent many years traveling back and forth to the Middle East. Probably the first time was 2008 when I was running an executive education conference over there, and I've been back and forth ever since. Um, Executive education conferences were very much part of my life for many, many years. And interestingly, how things go around at times. Interestingly, I was contacted just last night by the CEO of the conference company that I worked alongside with, and there is a chance that I might be starting doing some work with them again, starting in Barcelona, which would be lovely because that's where my university is, GBSB Global. And I'll be talking a lot about GBSB Global today. Now, just to bring you up to speed, this is celebrating World Radio Day, and JFI Radio isn't a radio station as such. It's a name that I gave to my podcasting back in 2015. And you know what? When you chance upon a brand name, there's no reason to change it unless something's gone drastically wrong. So I've decided to keep it all the way through. But just for clarity, it's not a radio station. It's a privately owned podcast. And every year I try to support World Radio Day. It's always on the 13th of February. And the theme this year, as identified by UNESCO, is radio and artificial intelligence, with the subtext of AI being a tool, not a voice. And this really, really piqued my interest. And I'll explain more as this podcast goes on, as this live podcast goes on. Now, it is live, and so, as I said before, there's a chance that I might make a slip up here and there. I say the wrong word or stumble over my words, but I don't mind because under normal circumstances, if it was pre-recorded, then I could just edit them out. But you get everything authentically me. There is no AI cloning. This is a real person, I can assure you. And you know what? I think as the broadcasts carry on throughout the day, I might be getting a little bit quieter, a little bit slower than normal, because I think the 5 a.m. first start is going to catch me up later on the day. And after this one, there's a 4:30 p.m. one. as I start to hit the Americas. And then there's the last one of the day, which is 9 p.m. So if you're catching this live, and as I said, for most of you over in the Middle East, around this area, if you're catching me live, fabulous. I'm so pleased you're with me. If you're not catching me live, then please don't worry. You're listening to the playback and the recordings, and eventually I'll get through to putting up the show notes as well. And I'll do it quickly. And do you know why? Is because I'm going to use AI for that. And I declared that in my last broadcast just now. Now, I don't just run executive education conferences. That was a good place for me to start. But I started way, 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 way back as a trainer, designer, facilitator, instructional designer for digital learning. And my qualification, if you like, my profession is human resources, and particularly organizational development and change. And that's come in really handy over the years because I've started to do business excellence assessments mainly in the Middle East. And I've been doing that since 2017. And I've got some lovely stories about that. But today we're talking and focusing just on AI specifically, which is important. Now, just before I move on to talk about AI, I would like to give a huge shout out to my lovely friend, colleague, and overall amazing businesswoman, Dr. Nariman Hajhamu. She is the founder and CEO of the Centre for Learning Innovations and Customized Knowledge Solutions, or more familiar term, which is CLICS. And Nariman, I'm going to be back with you in Dubai in April for your conference, your MENA Health, the 7th MENA Health. It's a biannual conference that she runs. It's called, well, the title for this particular one is Global Challenges, Local Impact, and it focuses on shaping the future, a resilient future for higher education. So if anybody would like to join me over in Dubai, it's on the 14th to the 16th of April, back again in the Kempinski Hotel over in Dubai in the UAE. It's an amazing event. Absolutely amazing event. I love it to bits. The people that I meet, there are so many people that I had interviewed last time because I podcasted. I'm the official podcaster for Mental Health, and I interviewed so many lovely people. And I'm going to get to see you all again, and I can't wait. It brings a lot of really important policymakers together, university leaders, usually from over 50 countries. This is an extraordinary event. And given my background in running executive education events myself, I know how much work goes into this. And you know what? 2 years ago, when Nariman organised this last time, we had a tornado. Now, she didn't legislate for the tornado. She didn't think about a tornado happening. None of us did. And we were stuck in the hotel, would you believe, for 3 days, the entire time of the event. The roads were flooded. We couldn't get cars through, nothing. So we ran that event and it continued. And our wonderful delegates kept on coming, battling through the rain, through the water to get to the event. I hold my hat up to you. You were just amazing. Your team at Clicks are amazing, and I can't wait to see you again. Why do I mention all of this? Because I'm focusing a lot of my attention on the Middle East at the moment because there's a lot of activity going on in the higher education arena, not just at this particular event, though this is a great place for identifying a concentrated information almost overload in terms of what each of the HEIs are actually doing. Loads of critical dialogue, lots of discussions, many of which I will capture on my podcast. So you can see from my microphone here, it's got this lovely, there it is, lovely furry top. Do you know what? I could replace this with maybe a foam filter with a JFI branded filter here, a little foam one, but it wouldn't be as attractive as this little furry filter here, this little wind muff. And do you know what? It is silly. Even the most senior and important people that come to this conference and the other conferences I was mentioning in the last broadcast. I've just come back from New Zealand and had some really impressive delegates there. Everybody wants to stroke the microphone. Do you know what? Being human is just lovely, which leads me beautifully on into everything we want to say about AI in higher education. As I said, I made a lot of podcasts when I was at that event. You can find them all on my website, jfiradio.com. There's a fantastic search engine that's been built by Darko, my IT guy over in North Macedonia. I always like to give him a shout out because he does some amazing work. He manages to translate what's in my head. And there's so much in my head and developments that I want to do. He manages to translate them into practicalities that come out onto the website screen. And there's a good search engine there. So if you put into the search engine MENA Health, HELF, MENA Health, then you will see all of the podcasts that I made from the event in 2024. So I'll be back there in April doing the podcasting again, and then after I leave you, Narrowmain, I'm going straight on to Kuwait to deliver a 3-day workshop on business excellence. So, you know what? I've spent so many years working in the Gulf, in the UAE, in Kuwait, in Qatar, and I just want to raise something really practical today for all of you, because I know that all the work that you're doing around higher education and all the developments that you're doing and embracing AI technology at a phenomenal rate over there. You're doing some superb work. I want to share something practical with you. Now, some of you may well have heard about this. Anybody that was listening to my podcast from 9 a.m. this morning will have heard me talk about actually, it's the UNESCO. I think I called it the United Nations, and I made a mistake. I told you there were bloopers. It's the UNESCO AI Competency Framework for Teachers, and there's also another one, a competency framework for students. And the idea is to help university faculty benchmark their skills. I have to tell you, this is a phenomenal piece of work and took a significant time to put together. And I've been using it with one of my universities, the GBSB Global over in Spain, and it really helps with professional development. It helps with leadership when it comes to looking at the way that AI is integrated, not just in education, but in industry as well. And it's also particularly useful for CPD and for people to upskill themselves. Now, the competency framework, was developed by UNESCO. So, and UNESCO, in case you don't know, stands for the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. And they're the same people that have organized this World Radio Day. So, synergy. You think this stuff is just thrown together, don't you? Because I sound like I'm just rambling, but there's a lot of preparation and research that goes into all of this. And I hope that it serves some purpose and value for you. Thank you. There, I can see 5 people online. And you know what? I'm just going to have a quick look at... Oh, hello! Let me just pop this up on the screen so you can see. It's the HR Solutions boss lady, Nkechi Kalu, over in Port Harcourt in Nigeria. And you're here for me. Thank you so very much. I am delighted that you are. Big shout out to you, Nkechi, and thank you for being such a support with me for so many years. I appreciate it. Let me come back and tell you about this competency framework. It was designed to help educators not just assess their skills, but develop their AI capabilities, but do so in a really structured and meaningful way, not just attend a few AI classes here and there. What I discovered when I started using it, and it was published first time in October 2024, and it's brilliant for anyone that just wants to look at the way that they embrace AI, either in their home life, in their work life, at a strategic leadership level. It touches so many areas. It's built on a very human-centered approach, but it also prioritizes values. And these values are really what hit home to me. Things like inclusivity, things about human agency, and respect for diversity. So, in short, it's the AI CFT, the competency framework for teachers. And it's organized around 5 key areas: mindset, AI ethics, AI foundations, AI pedagogy, and AI for professional development. So, how did this all come about? Well, under the leadership of Stefania Giannini, who is the Assistant Director General for Education, and also with guidance from Sobi Tawil, the Director of Future of Learning and Innovation Division, both at UNESCO, they undertook this initiative. And a contact of mine that I have since had lots of conversations with, Feng Chun Miao, is the Chief of Unit for Technology and AI in Education at UNESCO, and Feng Chun actually drafted the publication. And over my many conversations with him, he has shown to be absolutely delighted with what I've done and the way that I've interpreted the framework. And so I'm very proud because on behalf of UNESCO, he's endorsed my activities in this area through my podcasting and my lunch and learn sessions. And those lunch and learn sessions are what I've been doing with GBSB Global just at the end of last year. If I give you an idea about what the framework has, it's got 6 competency domains. So there's human-centered mindset, which I mentioned before, and this is just about basic literacy. It's about what AI can do, how it works, and what it can't do. It does sound simple, and actually we do overcomplicate things. We over-engineer them so they no longer sound as simple as they really should be. However, there are people, believe it or not, who think that AI thinks like human beings or that it's sentient. Now, in my last podcast, my broadcast, the last hour, I spoke about Bina 48 and how she, and I make no apology for calling her a she, because I've sort of lived and followed her since 2010, so I feel very close to Bina. She is a robot from Hanson Robotics and the Terrasun Research Foundation in Canada. And she is becoming more sentient. But AI isn't quite there yet. Will it be in my lifetime? I've no idea. However, it's moving very fast. What is clear, though, is that you need to understand AI. And if you don't understand its fundamental nature, the way it recognizes patterns at massive scale, then you will misinterpret what it can and cannot do. The second dimension is all about where AI sits within your education or organizational policy. For teachers, it might mean understanding better the institutional policies, the regulations, data protection. For broadcasters, business professionals, it's the same concept really. Just understand your organization, where it's going, what it's doing, and particularly its governance requirements. You need to know what's allowed and what's not allowed. And that leads to the third domain, which is ethics of AI. You need to understand and accept that there is bias in nearly all AI systems. There are privacy concerns, which you should be concerned about, you should be thinking about. There are transparency requirements, and there are environmental impacts as well. You do need to know, and I've said this at every single broadcast, so I'm not going to apologize for this, but say that actually AI does make mistakes, and the mistakes continue if we use what it creates without due care and attention and due diligence. The next domain is about AI foundations and applications and practical technical skills and how well people can or cannot use it. Do you write good prompts? Do you even know what a good prompt is? Do you understand how to get the best outputs rather than just generic rubbish? This is hands-on capability stuff, skill stuff. It's not theory, and it does take some working at. Another domain is about AI pedagogy. Now, if you're a teacher, an educator, it's about integrating AI into what you actually do, your actual teaching practice. For any other professions, it's about integrating AI into your actual work practice. How do you use AI tools? How do you use them and remain professional? How do you maintain your excellence standards? How do you validate your outputs? And when do you rely on AI versus human judgment? And this was something I mentioned at 5 a.m. this morning about creativity and innovation. Might be worth going back and having a quick listen to that one. And the final domain is about professional development. It's about continuous learning, lifelong learning. AI is evolving so fast. What you learnt 6 months ago, it's probably already out of date. So how are you keeping up to date? How are you being current? How are you sharing your knowledge with others? So the CFT, the competency framework for teachers, has 3 progression levels: acquire, deepen, and create. And within those 3 areas, it's how I used it for professional development at GBSB Global, the university. And we used it to run some CPD sessions, some lunchtime CPD sessions. So all of my workshops, everything I do is validated and approved by the CPD Standards Office. And I'm an approved CPD provider and recognised as a provider of training excellence. It means that when I run workshops, when I speak at conferences, provided we do the follow-up in the way that I've developed, then people don't pass or fail, they get CPD hours, and it's all based around my model of reflection. So what did I do with GBSB Global? Well, I used that competency framework for teachers so that they could do some self-assessment. The faculty worked through each domain. They used my self-assessment grid, which I mapped the competencies from the framework onto to make it easier for them to digest. And it gave everybody a really solid starting point. Each session, then, we built upon this scaffold to move through the 3 progression levels. What did it mean to acquire against each of those domains the basic knowledge? What did it mean to deepen your knowledge against each of those domains? And then what did it mean to strategically create against each of those domains? So based on the self-assessment, they had a series of priorities. They identified their development and took it back into the organisation to implement. What they can now do is build upon that learning to help each other, to share different approaches. And now we're really talking about synergistic learning. And I know from Dr. Victor Patena, the president of GBSB Global Business School, that they're now expanding this work further. They're looking at how to take the best advantage of AI throughout the university and across the whole institution through various explanatory planning and discussion meetings. And I'm so pleased for them. Now, what does this mean for you? Well, it doesn't matter whether you're listening in Dubai, Nairobi, Riyadh, or anywhere else. There is something about this that matters beyond it just being used in education. Every organization that's integrating AI needs some kind of structured competency development. You can't just send people on the numerous generic AI training courses and hope for the best. This UNESCO framework, adapted for your context, gives you the opportunity to do some capability diagnostics. It helps you identify your differentiator, how AI is actually going to work alongside your marketing team, alongside your strategic planning, how it's going to work alongside the content or your research and development. Those 6 domains aren't just about training people. It gives you an opportunity to really reverse engineer what you do now with AI as the context, the underlying context. And that means, once more, my favorite word, adaptation. It's about cultural adaptation, but not just human cultural adaptation now, human and computer cultural adaptation. So, all of you, for my lovely clients in the Gulf, this matters enormously to you. I know it does, because you are developing things so very fast. Now, if any of you want to explore the UNESCO AI competency framework for teachers or its partner competency framework for students, it's freely available from the UNESCO website. And if you want help adapting it for your organization, then that's exactly the kind of work that I do through JFI. So please just get in touch. My email is studio@jfiradio.com. So we've come to the end of another live broadcast. I'm going to take a short break now until 4:30 p.m. UK time. That's the time of the next live broadcast. But in between, I am going to take a break, but then I'm not going to take a break. Just been invited today by Philippe Chapeau, the coordinator of World Radio Day, to appear on a special live show in hour and a half's time to present the work that I'm doing at JFI Radio with all of you today in support of World Radio Day. And it will broadcast live from N Story's studio of N Group in Brussels. And Philippe will host the show, and there will be other radio stations, podcasters, media organizations and partners coming on air, and I will be on air at 3:10 p.m. UK time. So if you decide to join me, there will be a LinkedIn social media post that gives you the link if you wish to join us. My next broadcast will be here at 4:30 p.m. It's for the Americas. So as you can tell, I've just moved straight across the globe and I'm ready to talk to the Americas. And that particular topic is going to be AI's impact on leadership communication. Can I take this opportunity to thank you so very much for being part of this? Oh, look, let me just pop that. I do love it when there's a live chat and I can pop something up. And Ketchy, you're still with me. You remember Bina? Yes. Now, Nkechi, I have to tell you, was one of my students when I was teaching at the University of Westminster. And you remember me talking about Bina 48 back then. I'm so pleased. I don't know if you've carried on following what Bina has been saying, but and what's come out of there. But since then, she has been interviewed by Morgan Freeman, by Oprah Winfrey. Amazing stuff. But thank you for that. I'm so pleased. I'm absolutely pleased that you remember Bina. How fascinating is that? Listen, all of you, thank you so very much for joining me. I need to stop now. I need to give you a chance to maybe digest what I've covered. You want to know more, please email me. And for those of you that would really like to, why don't you come back and join me again at 4:30 p.m. UK time? But for now, thank you.